Amelia cleaned the floors of the mansion where her very existence was ignored. That is, until the day Julian Vance, a ruthless millionaire, decided to extend a party invitation to her for his lavish gala. Not out of kindness, but out of sheer malice. He yearned to witness her humiliation before the city's elite. What he couldn't foresee, however, was her grand entrance, adorned in emerald green, moving with the poise of a queen. And on that memorable evening, Julian would grasp a harsh truth: never underestimate the quiet strength of a forgotten past. It was 6:40 a.m. when Julian Vance's rapid footsteps echoed across the mansion's marble. He descended the grand staircase, speaking loudly into his phone, issuing directives about the event of the season. At the base of the hall, kneeling, Amelia meticulously scrubbed a dried wine stain. She had been there since 5 a.m., as was her daily custom. "I demand absolute perfection," Julian declared, without sparing her a glance. 500 guests, the press, politicians. This party will put me on the cover of Forbes." Upon ending his call, he paused beside Amelia. He observed her for a few seconds, a faint, cynical smirk playing on his lips. "By the way, you're coming to the party. As a guest," he announced. "I want you to experience a taste of high society." Amelia slowly rose, bewildered. "Sir, go get ready. You'll smile. You'll sit at the main table," he instructed. He tilted his head, a cruel glint in his eyes. "And you'll learn what happens when you forget your place." Amelia didn't immediately respond. She merely gave a subtle nod and walked away, pushing her cleaning cart down the corridor. Inside, her soul trembled, yet her face remained composed. After all, she had mastered the art of silent survival years ago. This mansion was her personal minefield. Every opulent piece of furniture, every disapproving glance from a guest, every ignored good morning. 2 years prior, she had shed the surname Santoro, embracing an anonymous existence hidden behind aprons and routines. Julian had no inkling of the woman who polished the floors of his trophy room, but on that particular day, something within him had shifted. It wasn't the invitation itself that wounded her. It was the underlying tone, the absolute certainty that she was intended to be the spectacle of the night, not for her grace, but for her humiliation. At the end of her shift, in her cramped servants' quarters, Amelia sat on the edge of her bed, shoulders hunched. She stared into the starkness of the faded yellow wall when she noticed something tucked between the old books on the shelf. An envelope. Curious, she pulled it out and discovered a crumpled photograph. Frozen in time, her face stared back. Her at her zenith. The shot had been taken 5 years earlier on the stage of the City Grand Theatre, following her final performance as a classical pianist. She wore a sweeping cobalt blue gown, and beside her, smiling, stood Maestro Arthur Sterling, her father. Newspapers had proclaimed her the future of classical music in the nation, but that future never materialized. Amelia closed her eyes. She felt the ancient ache resurfacing, as if it were yesterday. The family's sudden ruin, the public accusations against her father, the media frenzy, the night he vanished. And then, the silence. The very same people who once gave her standing ovations now crossed the street to avoid her. Alone, penniless, adrift, she erased her past, changed her name, and sought refuge where no one would look, amidst the cleaning supplies of an ordinary mansion. But now the past had returned, and Julian Vance, unknowingly, had just struck a match inside a powder keg. It was that night, holding that photograph with trembling hands, that everything began to transform. Before the downfall, there had been light. Amelia had blossomed amidst musical scores, harmonious voices, and thunderous applause. As the sole child of Maestro Arthur Sterling, she had breathed art since the age of 5. She began playing the piano in early childhood, and by 15 she was performing on international stages. While other girls snapped selfies at parties, she committed Chopin and Rachmaninoff to memory. Her life was a symphony of musical notes, cultural journeys, and society pages. Night after night, she would sit before the piano under the spotlights, captivating the world. But what she desired most, more than fame, more than success, was to uphold her father's legacy. Arthur Sterling wasn't merely a genius with the baton. He was her most ardent admirer. His smile after each concert held more value than any press review. Amelia truly believed that nothing could tarnish that realm of beauty and discipline until the quietude descended. A hushed investigation revealed that the Sterling Foundation, which funded community music programs, was entangled in embezzlement. Documents surfaced, testimonies, accusations of money laundering, tax fraud, irregular donations. Everything crumbled within weeks. The press that had once lauded her transformed into predators. Headlines shifted from prodigy to accomplice. She barely had time to grasp what was happening when she received the devastating news. Her father had leaped from the top of an abandoned building downtown. His body was found with a letter, but Amelia never summoned the courage to read it. The scandal was like acid. It dissolved her reputation, her prospects, her friends, her faith. Doors that once opened effortlessly now slammed shut with cold finality. Invitations ceased. The piano in their home was sold. So too was her dignity. She tried to resist. She attempted to prove her innocence, to restart as a music teacher. But no school would accept her. Parents complained, "We don't want that woman near our children." So she vanished. She moved to a different neighborhood, a different circle, changed her name. She became simply Amelia, and she offered herself for any kind of work, as long as it was far from the stage. That's how, 2 years ago, she arrived at the Vance mansion's doorstep. Julian didn't inquire much. He needed someone for cleaning. She needed to eat. The agreement was unspoken. And for a long time, Amelia believed that was the most she could ever hope for from life, until now. Holding the photograph, the memory of her father throbbing in her chest, and the looming humiliation, she understood that something far greater than pride was at stake. It was her identity, her narrative, and Julian still thought he could trifle with it. She awoke the next day as always, 4:45 a.m. Her body moved instinctively, a creature of habit. She descended the stairs silently, wearing the same worn sneakers, and prepared coffee for the morning shift staff. But internally, something was amiss. Julian's invitation still echoed in her mind like a chewed-over taunt. He knew what he was doing. He knew he'd throw her among the wealthy and vain, and then await the moment she'd flounder amidst silverware, coded jokes, and disdainful glances. During breakfast, she overheard Julian on the phone in the main drawing room. "Yes, Greg, it'll be unforgettable." A pause, a chuckle. "Just imagine a cleaner trying to mingle with diplomats." Silence. Another laugh. "A lesson on where everyone belongs. The public will adore it." She froze, teacup in hand. It wasn't paranoia. It wasn't a delusion. It was a performance. And she was the starring act. She spent the day on autopilot, cleaning floors, dusting furniture, but her mind raced. She considered leaving, abandoning everything, disappearing again. But a persistent question tore at her peace. How long will you run from who you are? In the late afternoon, she returned to her small, stifling room. She sat on the edge of the bed and opened the drawer where she kept her few personal belongings. Inside, carefully folded, was an embroidered handkerchief with her true initials, A.S. She brought it to her face. She inhaled the ancient scent, preserved by time. Tears came unbidden, but this time it wasn't just sorrow. It was memory. It was longing for her true self. That night she slept poorly. She dreamed of her father. He stood back to her, conducting an invisible orchestra. When she tried to call to him, he would turn his face, and it was Julian's. She awoke drenched in sweat, gasping, with the sensation of losing her voice once more. It was on the third day, as she cleaned the library windows, that fate intervened. There was a shelf of antique books, many untouched. As she pushed a thick volume of English literature, a loose sheet of paper fluttered out. It was an old concert program. And among the names of the evening, there she was, Amelia Sterling, guest soloist. Her name proudly printed, as if her presence there was entirely natural. She took the paper to the window. The morning light streamed through the thin, cream-colored paper, and something within her snapped. If Julian wants a show, he'll get one, but not the one he expects. That night, she secretly retrieved her phone and dialed a number she hadn't used in years. It rang. It rang. It rang. Hello? A trembling, familiar voice answered. Anna? A pause. Amelia? I need your help. On the other end of the line, a sigh that seemed to hold the weight of the world. I thought I'd lost you. Amelia closed her eyes. Perhaps she had been lost, but now she wanted to be found. Have you ever needed to hide who you truly are, just to keep moving forward? Have you ever pretended to be less than you are, just so you wouldn't bother anyone? If this has happened to you, leave a yes in the comments below. It's just one word, but it shows me you're there, and that this story is reaching hearts that know exactly how much it hurts to forget yourself. The next morning, Amelia took the subway for the first time in months. She exited in an old neighborhood where the streets still carried the scent of bakeries and the sound of children playing. There, at the end of an ivy-covered alley, lived Anna Rossi, a retired seamstress, once a designer of gowns for stars now forgotten. Amelia knocked softly. The door creaked open, revealing an elderly woman with white hair pulled back in a bun and hands marked by time. For a second, they stood in silence. And then Anna dropped the cloth she was holding. Amelia Sterling. They embraced right there in the doorway, like closing a forgotten circle. In the small room filled with old patterns and fabrics, Amelia explained. Not everything, but enough. The party, the invitation, the hidden agenda. Anna listened in silence, eyes welling up. When Amelia finished, she rose without a word and walked to the back room. From there, she returned with a dress carefully protected by a raw linen cover. I made this model 3 years ago. It's never been worn. It was waiting for you, Anna said. I knew that one day you would remember who you are again. Amelia opened the cover and gasped. The dress was a spectacle in itself. Emerald green with a subtle shimmer of hand-embroidered crystals, it captured the light as if it possessed a life of its own. The back neckline plunged into a deep V, crisscrossed by delicate straps. The long skirt fell in light layers, with a train that flowed like water. It was bold. It was breathtaking. It was impossible to ignore. I can't wear this, Amelia whispered. Yes, you can, Anna replied, because it's not about the party. It's about you. It's about reminding the world and yourself of what no one can steal, your presence. That night, alone in her room, Amelia hung the dress on the wall. She sat facing it, and for the first time in years began to see herself again. She didn't know if it would work, but for the first time, she wanted to try. The next day, the mansion seemed unchanged, but Amelia was not. As she wiped down the grand staircase, her mind was elsewhere. It was on the names of the guest list, which she had silently committed to memory each time Julian left documents on the table. Business magnates, diplomats, public figures. Some she knew personally from the past. Others were mere shadows of the high society that had ignored her when everything fell apart. That evening, she returned to her small room and opened the notebook she had purchased with her last savings. In it, she began to jot down each name, each face, each vulnerability. She mentally reviewed them as if studying a musical score. Dr. Edward Harrison, former Minister of Culture, an old friend of her father's. Clara Jenkins, art curator, who had once sought her consultation years ago. Robert Sterling, financial sector tycoon, a former investor in the Sterling Foundation. One by one, she mapped out those faces, not to impress, but to remind herself that she had once been their equal. During the late hours, she practiced in front of the mirror as if rehearsing a performance. Good evening, Dr. Harrison. It's a pleasure to see you again. Yes, Clara, I'm still passionate about Kandinsky, but now I've been studying contemporary African art. Each phrase was a step back to her center. Each simulation, a crack in the silence that had swallowed her for years. On Thursday, the day of the event, she awoke at 5 a.m., finished her work by noon, and discreetly ascended the service stairs with the bag containing the dress, folded as if sacred. She felt fear, she felt doubt, but above all, she felt something she hadn't recognized in a long time: anticipation. The idea of standing before those who had buried her, not as vengeance, but as a silent reassertion, was the flame that ignited something ancient within her. The kind of flame that once illuminated stages. And on that night, the stage would be different. Only a few hours remained until the party began. In the stuffy back room of the mansion, Amelia faced the mirror with the dress still hanging. The silence was as thick as the anxiety swelling in her chest. Her hands trembled. On the bed, scattered like pieces of a ritual, lay the accessories borrowed from Anna: aged emerald earrings, a dark velvet clutch, and a delicate necklace that seemed to whisper stories. But it was the dress that commanded all the air in the room. She took it from its cover. She felt the fabric glide like water through her fingers. She dressed slowly, as if not to frighten the woman she once was. And when she finished preparing, for an instant she hesitated. She looked at herself in the mirror. The image was powerful. The emerald green reflected the yellowish light as if glowing from within. The cut accentuated her silhouette with sharp elegance, and her face, enhanced by light makeup, exuded control. But inside her, the abyss still whispered, "What if they laugh at you? What if no one remembers? What if it's even worse than you imagine?" Amelia took a deep breath. She closed her eyes. She remembered an old moment when her father, backstage at a concert, noticed her trembling before she stepped onto the stage. He simply said, "You don't need to show courage. You just need to walk, even with fear." She opened her eyes. A faint smile touched the corner of her lips. She didn't know what she would encounter downstairs, but she knew that this time it wasn't an escape. It was an affirmation. She slipped on her heels like donning armor. She adjusted the necklace around her neck, and she descended the service stairs with slow yet firm steps, like someone reclaiming their own name. When she paused before the doors of the main ballroom, the sounds of the party already filled the air: laughter, clinking glasses, ambient music. Amelia slowly exhaled. She placed her hand on the golden doorknob. She was ready, or at least ready enough not to hide anymore. As Amelia pushed open the ballroom doors, time seemed to pause. The party's sound, previously vibrant and chaotic, gave way to an odd, partial silence, as if something had been cut from the air. The ballroom was a spectacle of extravagance: crystal chandeliers, faint violins, tables adorned with white flowers and amber light. And there, among business tycoons, politicians, and celebrities, she appeared, dressed in emerald green, like a living fissure in the golden landscape. The long train of her dress trailed behind her like noble smoke. The embroidered crystals subtly caught the lights, creating the illusion of pulsating stars in motion. Her hair, pulled back in a low bun, revealed the daring deep backline, an audacious and undeniable feature. She didn't walk, she glided. Conversations died one by one, like candles snuffed by the wind. In the center of the ballroom, Julian Vance sipped whiskey while entertaining a group of investors. He laughed loudly, confident, master of everything, until he noticed that the eyes around him were no longer on him. He followed their gazes, and he saw. For a second, the glass nearly slipped from his hand. The woman at the entrance was not the employee who cleaned his rugs. She was something else, something he didn't comprehend, but which somehow threatened him. Amelia continued, firm steps, chin held high. She crossed the ballroom among people who watched her in silence, trying to decipher her. Some recognized her, others simply sensed. It was the retired diplomat, Dr. Edward Harrison, who approached first. "Amelia," the voice emerged as a reverent whisper. She paused, smiled delicately. "Good evening, Doctor. It's been a long time." "My goodness, it truly is you," He held her hand like one rediscovering a precious jewel. Sterling, Maestro Arthur's daughter? Whispers spread like wildfire. Is it her? Amelia Sterling? But I thought she had vanished. Clara Jenkins approached, incredulous. You look marvelous. I thought you had left the country. I left myself for a while, she said calmly. But I'm back. By this point, Julian was approaching with the nervous smile of one attempting to control chaos. Amelia? What a surprise. I didn't realize that I knew how to walk in a straight line, Julian. No, of course not. It's just that he sought support in the eyes of his guests. He found none. Thank you for the invitation, she continued. I never imagined a ballroom could fall so silent. She looked around. There was admiration, there was respect, but above all there was memory. People remembered the talent, the legacy, the woman who had suddenly disappeared. Are you back? Someone asked. Not yet, she replied, but today I took the first step. Julian remained frozen, diminished in his own domain. There, before the woman who was reborn with a mere presence, he understood what he had done. He hadn't humiliated her. He had ignited her. 3 months had passed since the night the ballroom fell silent before Amelia Sterling. The green dress was carefully stored in a linen box, like armor that no longer needed to be worn daily. She hadn't returned to the stage. Not yet. But she had started playing again, in a simple room on the upper floor of a peripheral cultural center, where she taught piano to scholarship children. It was Saturday morning. Sunlight filtered through the tall windows, illuminating the white and black keys as if they danced. Amelia played slowly, accompanying the trembling little fingers of an 8-year-old boy who missed the tempo but smiled in his effort. Breathe, she said with tenderness. Music isn't a race, it's a journey. In the background, hanging on the wall of the room, was an old portrait of her father, Maestro Arthur, with the same serene gaze she had learned to carry. During the coffee break, she went down to the garden and found Julian Vance waiting in silence, seated on a stone bench. He wore jeans, a simple shirt. No designer watch, no facade. You came, she said, surprised. I promised I'd come see the project with my own eyes. And what do you think? I think that you were never lost. I just couldn't see, he said, looking at her with sincerity, and I'm truly sorry for that. She nodded, unhurriedly, without resentment. You weren't the only one who couldn't see. I also faded for a while. Will you accept the Foundation's proposal? He asked. Perhaps, but now I'm not in a hurry, she replied. For the first time in years, she didn't need to rush to prove herself. A gentle breeze passed between them. Want to come upstairs? She offered. There's a piano room and coffee. I'd love to. They entered together, without spotlights, without masks. Inside, a new melody began to emerge. Because she didn't conquer the world, but she conquered what was within her. For a long time, Amelia believed she needed to erase parts of herself to fit into the world. She thought that by hiding her talent, her past, even her name, she would be safer, invisible, untouchable. But hiding who we are doesn't protect us. It empties us. The toughest lesson of her journey wasn't about injustice or others' arrogance. It was about identity, about how easy it is to lose oneself trying to survive, and how hard it is to find the courage to remember. Amelia didn't return to who she was. She became something even greater, someone who knew rock bottom and climbed back up with her own hands. Someone who learned that dignity doesn't come from a title, nor from a bank account, nor from clothes. It comes from posture, from clarity, from the silence that carries firmness. And now, if you've made it this far, perhaps this story is also deep down an invitation to you. Maybe you've also erased parts of yourself to fit in. Maybe someone made you believe you don't belong. But listen closely to one thing. You don't need to hide. You don't need to diminish yourself. You don't need to ask permission to be whole. Your worth is non-negotiable. You don't need a stage to shine. You just need, like Amelia, to remember who you are. If this story touched you in some way, leave a like. It's just a click, but it shows me it's worth continuing to write stories like this. and tell me in the comments which city you're watching from. I truly read all of them, and I lovingly reply to those who take a moment to chat with me here. If you believe in the power of stories like this, subscribe to the channel. Every new subscription gives me strength to continue this mission. And now, don't go away. Choose one of the stories I've left here on the screen, and meet me in the next video.